doing what you love, loving what you do. Because I think a lot of the time we're so fixated on having jobs that we love, but jobs don't serve a lot of us.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Confessions of a B2B Entrepreneur. My name is Tom, and today we have Emily Dunlop, who has spent a lot of time in brand and comms, and from my experience knows a lot about branding. We talk about her journey with a company called Multiplier, where she essentially revamped the whole brand and took them from 2 to 45 million ARR in 2.5 years. Then we also speak about Emily's journey from brand and marketing lead to solopreneur now. And so why she did that, what she's doing, how she's thinking about building out that business. So I think it's going to be an awesome conversation, especially if you're interested in brand and interested in being a solopreneur. Before we jump into that, quick shout out to Fame for producing this show. If you like a podcast like this, head to fame.so and request a proposal. Let's jump into that conversation with Emily now. Emily, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom. Nice to meet you.
So I want to break this chat into two, because it seems from my research, we had almost like the career, largely in marketing. We'll go into that. And then only this year we've kind of we haven't broken away from the career, which is taking a different turn in the career, right? So we're going to split the chat into two. Does that sound good?
It sounds good.
Cool. And so on the kind of old career side, I want to jump into the role you had at Multiple. Seems like a very interesting one. It seems like the company went through like significant growth while you were there, and then your role also evolved. So it started as senior brand and comms manager and then ended up as head of marketing. So could you just explain like what you were responsible for when you joined and then how that changed?
Yeah. So when I joined, it was in 2021, and I originally saw a job spec that was for a social and communications manager role. So I reached out to the founder. At that point, I'd come from a more senior position, but I was fresh into the job market, wanting to make a move because I had in a previous role, a previous organization had started a side hustle, which when the founder found out, didn't go down too well. So I was in the job market.
Oh, no, let's talk about that. So was this the jewelry company?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you had that, and then the founder found out.
Yeah. So I was working for a tech company, and this was like in lockdown. So for 2 years, happily doing the role. And 6 months prior to what went down, had launched a jewelry brand. It'd taken me 18 months to develop the concept, build the supply chain, go to market. Kept it a bit of a secret for 6 months, and just kind of like doing it very much in stealth mode. And then realized like I wanted to be part of the brand journey of the company. So decided I needed to tell the CEO of the company, and it didn't go down very well. And so within a few weeks, had a call one day, and it was like the role is not going to be continued. And that was like full-time. I was a full-time member of the team. Now I have to say, I do feel like every setback is a redirection into the right place for me. And I wasn't the happiest in that role. And I had a lot of gratitude for actually having that setback. At the time, I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do? I haven't got a job. But I had garden leave, gave me some time to think. When I joined the company, so what happened was I then saw this job advertisement, which wasn't a role that I was particularly excited about. I loved the brand. And then when I liked the concept of the company. So in short, what the company was, Multiplier is a global EOR company, which helps companies to be able to hire in markets where they haven't got presence. So it stands for an employer of record. Saw the job advertisement, then looked into the company, and then I was like, this is really interesting. Thinking about the world of remote work, how people work, where people work. I kind of wanted to be part of this. And so when I had the first conversation with one of the founders, I was like, this sounds great, but to be honest, I see bigger fish that you need to solve for. You haven't got a brand identity. You're not doing so many of the activations that I can see your competitors are doing. So the first conversation with one of the co-founders went really well. And then basically the next step, it was only a 2-step interview. So the next step was meant to be meeting with the CEO. But at this point, I was like, I want this job. And so it was meant to just be a quick half-an-hour coffee conversation to meet Salgar, the CEO, and hopefully progress forward. But like I said, I wanted this job. So And I also knew that the job spec shouldn't be that job spec. I think they had so much appetite to do more. So I put together a full strategy, and it was actually a 5 a.m. call. I don't know if the CEO realized at the time, like, this was early, but I was like, I'm going to get this job. And so had a great call. It was meant to be half an hour, went on for an hour and a half. And it was like, right, when can you start? And that's kind of what ended up happening for a lot of my time there, where the culture of the business was if you had an idea and you had gut feel and proof that, well, kind of a good business case for why something would work, you were given that freedom to go and make that happen, which is really rare. I think certainly for me, looking back at my career, I think when you are given that autonomy and license to do what you know is the right thing to do, that's when you see real magic happen. And so when I joined the company, like I said, my initial role was to look after social and communications, but could just see that there was so much other stuff to do. And I was actually one of the first, not only brand hires, but the first hire that wasn't based in India. And so at the time, the way the marketing function was set up, it was very much just SEO and paid. So let's churn out a load of blog content to get traffic through to the site, and let's dominate with Google ads. And so it was like, okay, we're going to go and do a content strategy or a social strategy. Like, what's the brand story? And then let's not even get started on the brand, because the initial brand and look and feel, like if you check out the company now, it's very different to what it was 2 years ago. So the initial brand had been put together in 6 weeks with a 10-page brand book, right? And it was just amazing because the company had really entered the market in the right way, was gaining traction. But, it was the color blue because one of the founders likes the color blue. We had an illustration style because one of the other founders had worked at McKinsey. So it was all these like hacking a brand to get to market, which is the right thing to do. You don't always have to have that beautiful brand from day one. And so built a business case to say, like, look, we really need to look at this and let's reevaluate what this brand is all about. Let's look back to look forward and make sure that actually we're starting to really stand out in what was becoming quite a crowded market. You had companies like Deal, Oyster with deeper pockets, like investment rounds of like 600 million. So we had to really be smart. And if brand was to kind of play a role in this, and it had to be an appealing brand. And the business at that point it kind of dominated Asia, but was starting to go into the US. And so it's like, right, we need to make sure that we're speaking the language of our customers. And so, like I said, that was the kind of the way it all worked. Like if you wanted to do something and you could prove that it was the right thing to do, you were given that freedom. So like I said, really rare to be able to do that. Brought in the right people, brought in the right agency partners. And it was a really beautiful experience. Like a rebrand is no mean feat. It took 18 months to actually get to a point of being able to launch. But we just really, from doing this steps in the groundwork, meeting with investors, meeting with customers, meeting with internal stakeholders, the founding team, we developed a really beautiful brand. It was baked in this kind of concept of opportunity, which kind of kept coming out in all the discussion that we had. And so the strapline was a world without limits. Let's open up the world of work to everyone, regardless of where you're born. You can wake up in India, work in New York. You can wake up in New York, work in Singapore. So it's this beautiful concept around opportunity. And so we can talk a bit more about the brand, but really love that experience. And when I had started, it was let's look at social and content, but then it was like, let's also look to unlock other avenues. We weren't doing any events. I remember within 3 weeks, again, I'd lobbied to like, let's go in and look at how we can activate and test whether events can work for us. And so they're a bit hesitant at first because that's budget, and events can be either really bad or they can be really good. And so it's kind of getting through to the founders of like, we have to go and test. Like we don't know unless we've tested these things, right? And so I remember within 3 weeks, I'd been able to persuade us to do headline sponsorship of a conference in Toronto, a remote working conference, and had negotiated actually a really good deal given that it was really close to when the event was happening. So went in headline sponsorship. We had a fireside interview being with the CEO and a journalist from Quartz magazine. We had live product demonstrations. This wasn't long after COVID, so there was still online and in person as part of the setup. So really good opportunities for the online side of the events, full access to the list, like really good booth location. And again, it was about testing like how this can work for us. I remember eyeing out thinking, okay, this is either going to be a disaster and I'm going to lose my job, or this can work really well. And then it can be a signal of change for how we go about and think about these things. So again, like having to make sure that it wasn't just about leads, it wasn't just about branded. This could actually be a test bed for actually looking at content capturing, looking at pipeline generation, looking at like brand awareness at these events and so on. So it worked really well, was able then to unlock a new channel. So that was the kind of way I worked throughout my time there. I went in as senior social and communications manager. Within, I think, about 12 months of being promoted to brand marketing director and then head of marketing, because it was just about unlocking growth, making an impact fast, and then building the right teams to go and really take it up a level once we'd proven that a concept would work.
Seems like it was a great choice of company to work for because A, like perfect timing with that kind of product just post-COVID, but then B, they also like your skill set or your passions like fit very well with what they didn't have, what they needed. So it seems like you nailed that. Why did you leave?
So I worked there for 2.5 years, which in a Series B hyper-growth company, it felt like a lot longer because we did so much and we achieved so much. I think when I joined, we were averaging like 2 million ARR. When I left, it was 45 million. Had amazing experiences there. The company in general is a fantastic organization and had gone through rapid change. I felt like I'd made a really good impact. However, I was feeling burnt out. I remember flying to Australia in March and very quick turnaround. Was in Australia 3 days. And then on the flight back, I remember thinking or recognizing like severe burnout or on my way to severe burnout. My energy had started to shift, like what had gone from feeling really energetic and really like always bringing like a good vibe to like my day to day. There was a few things that had changed, like changed in management, changed in strategic direction. And so I kind of just recognized like, Emily, it's your time to go and do something for yourself now. I had started a jewelry brand like 2 to 3 years prior to that, 3 years prior to that. Didn't work, learned loads of lessons from that, recognized that I wasn't passionate enough about jewelry, but I was able to really prove to myself that I can build a brand, I can build and like launch a go-to-market strategy, get good traction. I broke even, which was not a bad thing. And I recognized that now I've had 12 years of experience in marketing and I'm sat on insight that an experience that's actually valuable. And why don't I do that for myself? I think when you get to work with really ambitious entrepreneurs, that energy is contagious. You see what it takes to build a company. And I thought, right, I'm going to go and make this now work for myself. So that I started to think about that from March. And then fast forward 3 months, I thought, right, okay, I'm going to go in. And also LinkedIn is so powerful. I could see a lot of solopreneurs like 6 months, 12 months, 2 years into their journey and making it work for themselves. And that really inspired me. I was having the conversation that it's like a trickle effect. Once you start having an idea and the more you speak to people and the more that you kind of like visualizing what that could look like, it kind of snowballed a little bit from there. So that's why I left. My energy had changed. I knew it was the right time for me. Gut feel was there and just decided to start like thinking about what that next stage should look like and also not to rush it. So in my personal life, a few changes had happened and I've moved to Italy in April of this year and had sold my house. I'd made a lot of like personal changes and I had a run rate. I have savings. I was thinking, right, I can go and leave a job without having clients yet. I know I would make it work. I know what my run rate would be in terms of like making it profitable. And so I had that grace, but I also know gut feel like I'm going to make this work regardless.
Why Italy?
So I started last year to come and spend a lot of time here. I was traveling around Siena, Florence, and just, again, I'm big on energy. And my team actually, someone in my team had said to me, Emily, when you're in Italy, you just seem a lot calmer. And Italy's got an amazing tech scene and strong Wi-Fi. It's a beautiful country. The food's amazing. The people are great. And so I just started to like come back and forth to test being a digital nomad here. Loved the vibe of it. And I thought, right, I remember actually going in January, I was in India for an off-site. And I think from working for a company like Multiplier, where I was able to work with an international team, travel the world almost, that led to me. It sounds really obvious, but I really realized that the world's a big place. And so I'm working remotely. Why do I need to be in the UK? I don't have like a team to go and see in person here. Like the team's all like distributed across the UK, London, the Midlands through to like Scotland even. But I wasn't seeing my team day to day. And so I remember having a conversation with a guy in work after the offsite, and I was feeling a bit stressed because I knew I wanted to move. I didn't know where I wanted to move to. I didn't have like a company saying move to New York, and that kind of like is almost overwhelming when you've got so many opportunities. And he gave me the best advice and was like, "You're overcomplicating this. Just go and test Italy. You like Italy. If it doesn't work, you can always go somewhere else." And that's a really good bit of advice because I decided from that point, booking a one-way ticket, see how it works. 6 months later, very settled, very happy here.
So let's shift to the second chapter. When you kind of decided that you wanted to go off on your own, what were the first things you started doing to like build the, I guess, either the product or service or like the attention, the marketing for it?
Yeah. So I've been a big fan of LinkedIn for a long time, but it's only in the last 6 months that I've started building my personal brand. But I've always understood the power and the opportunity that LinkedIn has. So like I said, for about 10 years, I've had a LinkedIn profile, and I'd always look to LinkedIn for ideas, to learn, to find if I was recruiting, how I'd go and find new team members, if I wanted a bit of inspiration for campaigns. Like the power of LinkedIn, I think, is very underrated. And so I was doing a lot of research, looking at other creators, looking at other agencies. And that's the thing. I think when you go solo, there is that question that you have of, do you want to be an agency? Do you want to be a solopreneur? Like, what is the vibe? Like, what is it that you want to do? And so I was following actually a lot of people in the US, people like Nick Lafferty. He'd left Loom. He'd gone to set up his own as a solopreneur in like performance. Tamara, she'd left a company called Kajabi. And so when you start to speak to people that have done similar things, even if you haven't yet got that idea nailed, when you speak to people that have done similar things, then it kind of snowballs. You find real inspiration, you get given advice. And I always think that when people give you advice, like it's great on the one hand, because that's speaking from their experience, but I don't always take that at face value. The US is a very different game to the UK. I was having all these questions of like, what kind of companies am I targeting? Where are they based? What do I want to do? And so I was really just taking my time to think about that. So like I said, it started in March. I didn't end up leaving my company until the end of May, went live in June. But I knew I was going to start building my brand from around March time. So like I said, having conversations with people that were doing similar things, and it kind of went from there. So I came up with the name, the Good Marketing Club, because what I liked about having a brand name is that then would give me license to go in different avenues. Either I could stay as a solopreneur, being a contractor, working with various companies, which we can get into, or it could kind of form more of an agency setup, but it gave me a brand name. And I think from just having club in the name, that in itself gives me a bit of like room of like, that can stay as just my brand, or it could go into community, it could go in lots of avenues. And I think you have to be open to, you're going to have to change your positioning. You're going to have to figure out things as you go. And I wanted to have something that could get me started. I did a lot of soul searching to figure out like, where have been my experiences and companies in the past, which have really given me the most value. And so I did a lot of like figuring out, what is my positioning? What am I good at? What do I really like to do? Where does my energy hit well when I'm getting to do that kind of work? Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Because if I look at my experience, it's a real blend. Like for the last 5 years, it's been purely B2B. But I started in B2C. I've always worked agency and in-house, working for direct to consumer or kind of large FMCG companies. So that was a lot of figuring out, like, who am I targeting? What am I targeting them with? And then it kind of went from there. So I did a lot of figuring out what my unique value proposition was, who am I looking to target, what my values are, and then being really strict around them. So when I went to market, didn't have any clients. That first 2 months, you're kind of thinking, oh, fuck, like, what have I done? When are the clients going to? I remember actually Googling, like, how do you find clients? But I'd had some good advice. And I also, my intuition was going in a good place. So I was posting consistently on LinkedIn. I was starting to see a lot of like momentum being built. It's really interesting when you launch something like, you'll know this, if like people come out of the woodwork and give you so much value. Like I had my first client came from a referral that I didn't know before. The guy reached out to me. He's like, I've been following you, really like your content. We've got a client. They need some help with marketing. Would love to make the introduction.
Really? So you can like credit that to the content, but it was just somebody random in the audience.
Yeah, completely. And then you also kind of, yes, people really come out to support you. Also, you kind of bit triggered by the fact that people don't support you, and that's fine too. Like you get to really understand like, okay, how do I make this work? So was posting consistently on LinkedIn, was doing my outreach. I was like, again, making sure that message was like landing correctly. So, and again, refining that as I went. So within, like I said, within 2 months, I didn't have any revenue coming in for the first 2 months. But by the start of month 3, I'd signed my first contract. And then I'd signed my second by the end of that month as well.
And what were the contracts to do?
So the way it works with the Good Marketing Club and the way I've kind of adapted it is, so the Good Marketing Club is the brand name, and what my service offering is 2 things. I go in either as a fractional head of marketing / CMO to help seed to growth stage companies to kind of get the foundations in place, get the right strategy working, executing and consulting as I go, building up the teams. Because I do strongly believe if you're a seed company, like you don't need a CMO from day one. You need a really solid growth marketer, a growth hacker, content creator, and a role like myself to kind of help with the internal dialogue, the internal education, and kind of getting that strategy in place. And then the second half is to support entrepreneurs with branding. And that could either be personal branding or building businesses from scratch. That's where I really want to go, to be honest, because I do think there's so much potential when people realize like the bar to enter into some of these avenues isn't as high as you think. And I was always put off by fear of failure, self-doubt, but actually that is a good thing. If you can tap into like failure is the best thing that can happen to you. Doubt also is a super skill. Like if you can learn to channel that in the right way, naivety is a beautiful thing. But again, I do think I see so many people that have such massive potential, but just are put off from getting started and doing the things that I know they're passionate about. Right. And I think that's where I want to go in the future, just really helping ambitious and good people do good things.
That's a Good Marketing Club. Yeah, I agree with you. I do love the branding on that. And I wouldn't expect anything less. Because it's like, I think the word good is very like, I think is, for lack of a better word, like good. And then I like the fact that you put club at the end. So you have that versatility. It could be a newsletter, it could be a community, it also could be an agency. So I think great branding on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Because I think like when like good's underrated, being good is, if you're a good person, if you're having a good time, like that, basically the way I've kind of built my values is like, this is how I'm like testing. If I want to work with the client, it's, are we going to have a good time? Are we going to do good marketing? And am I going to be working with good people? The 3 rules of the club, that kind of is what my values are. And so far it's helping as my compass really of like finding the right clients, making sure it's a good fit. And yeah, keeping myself entertained with coworkers.
And that's like the way you brand. Like, I'm not a branding expert, but either the way you brand, if like first you look inside, just as you did there with like your process for selecting clients, and then you like choose which part of you show to the world. Is that like a summary of how to brand something?
Yeah, I think you have to like, there has to be an authentic story in how you're branding yourself, whether it's a personal brand, whether it's a product or service that you're building, right? If it's not coming from an authentic place, then I think people can see through that now. And I think I'm learning a lot as I go. Like I even think this in the content that I'm putting out there. I know that when I'm speaking from a place of authenticity, they're the posts that do really well. If I'm feeling like I might be having a day where I've not thought about my content, I haven't put enough time and I'm just kind of rushing something out and it's not speaking from the heart, that's not going to do well. I think that's the same when it comes to branding. There has to be authenticity. It has to come from a foundational place of where you've done that work to really understand who do you want to be a hero to, who are you targeting, what do they care about? Have you done that work to make sure that your brand positioning and your brand story speaks to that? Then you're doing the right thing. But I mean, I love your, like, you know this, because I love your personal branding. If I look at your stories, there's always authenticity in what you post.
Yeah, I would say maybe 95%, but yeah, thank you for that, Emily. I have an interesting question, I think, is if you had to like make a bet what the Good Marketing Club would be in like 3 to 5 years, because you're obviously, as you mentioned, don't know how it's going to evolve, but I'd be interested to ask that question.
Yeah, this is interesting. So it's interesting because, like I said earlier, I'm already recognizing that I'm having to pivot and slightly change my offering. Laura Costa put out a post not long ago where it was like, it's not your content that needs to niche, it's your offering, I think it was. Where like, it's confusing because I'm the Big Marketing Club, I'm the brand, but my service lines are different. And so when I'm talking about what I want to promote, which is my services, I'm speaking to 2 different audiences there with 2 different needs and things like that. So I've had a few tests as I've launched. Like I remember within So month 3, I had my first big test, which was company came out of nowhere, an offer for a full-time role, equity in the business would have taken me completely off course. It was in crypto, which I'm not a big crypto person, but anyway, the job offer was great. That was a big test, and had another big test recently where I secured a personal branding contract. Then within a couple of months, the scope of the role changed. And I was like, that's not the kind of work that I want to do. And I have to stay true to myself, because when I'm working with clients, like the reason why, I mean, I want it to be a success anyway, but I'm still just getting started and I need those testimonials, I need those case studies. So if I'm not doing the kind of work that's going to benefit me in the future, like I get some tests, but that's really good for me to actually understand myself. Like, where do I want this to go? So I've been doing a lot of thinking around that recently. And like I said, I really am passionate about more people becoming entrepreneurs to actually live out what their purpose and passions are. So I see the Good Marketing Club in 5 years. Like, I don't know, this is very much subject to change. But I'd love to have a conversation with you in 5 years if this comes off, of helping more and more people get started with their business and their brands and helping them with that go-to-market and kind of the strategies that you need to really get a brand off the ground. What that, I don't exactly know, but we'll see.
It seems like both of the service offerings you have now like align with that, I think.
Yeah, but at the moment it's time-based, right? I'm operating and I'm at capacity on time. So how can I then look at like more recurring revenue, which is helping people, coaching people, but is that courses? Is that, I don't know yet, but I want to have more of like a diversified portfolio.
Got it. Yeah. So the mission can remain the same, but the way you deliver it may evolve over time.
Exactly.
Can I ask, I don't normally ask guests this, but do you have any book recommendations? It seems like from talking to you that you have like, it seems like you spend time reading because you, I don't know, it seems like you're, I don't know how to describe it, but like you've thought about this a lot. And normally that's, and part of that is reading. So specifically for like either marketing or entrepreneurship, do you have any good book recommendations?
I do. So books that have really helped me. Do you know Holly Tucker, founder of Not on the High Streets?
Nope.
But you know, Not on the High Street, basically.
Yeah, I've heard of that brand, yeah.
Etsy. So she has a book called Love What You Do, Do What You Love. And that book, I mean, I'm a big fan of hers anyway, because her podcast, Conversations of Inspiration, is just amazing. She profiles entrepreneurs, business owners, basically inspiring people that have done great things, and gets to know the real story behind the success and the failures. And through the podcast, then learn about her book. And what I love about the book is it really teaches you how to go inwards to figure out what it is you want to do with doing what you love, loving what you do. Because I think a lot of the time we're so fixated on having jobs that we love, but jobs don't serve a lot of us. People think, and then we blame, it's like, oh, I've got a bad boss, or is it me? And you're right, depends what kind of person you are. But I'm definitely someone that I've always challenged when I've been told that something can't be done. I'm unmanageable. So that book really helped me to understand like, what is it that I'm passionate about. So definitely recommend her book, Do What You Love, Love What You Do. There's a book by Roxy Nafusi, which is around manifestation. I think manifestation get a bad rep because people think it's very airy-fairy. But to me, manifestation's having a vision, which if you work in brand marketing, that's what is really important. Read her book at the start of the year, which was a real game changer to me. The book I'm reading at the moment, actually, in The Psychology of Money. And I think this is a really good book because, again, it's teaching yourself how to play the game of like making money. And I think money gets a dirty word in business, but at the end of the day, we're all here to make a living, and that enables us to do the things that we want to do. So they would be the 3 that come to mind as like really, this one currently can't put down. And those 2 that I've just mentioned, really good. They're not necessarily business books, but definitely inspiring reads.
Epic. We'll link to all 3 below. We'll also link to the Good Marketing Club and your LinkedIn profile. Anything else we should link to or mention?
I've just launched a newsletter actually, which is version number 2. Started my first one on LinkedIn, realized I was doing it for the sake of it because I didn't know what that was going to be. I'd rushed to put a newsletter together. You think you need to do all these things right from day one. So version 2 is actually a better newsletter, which is called The Good Life, which is helping people understand how to live a good life when you're building a business. So would love it if you could link to that as well.
Again, great branding. Emily, thank you so much for coming on and sharing about the journey and about branding. We'll link all the stuff below, but it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Tom. Great to meet you and have a conversation.
Okay, team, we can clearly see Emily knows a lot. Well, two things about the branding process, but also what I liked here was the introspection and the investigation almost into what Emily herself liked to do and how she's manifesting that or living that through the work she's doing now as this B2B entrepreneur. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know if you like episodes like this. If you do have any feedback, please go to Apple Podcasts, leave a rating and review. If you send me a screenshot, I'll give you a shout out on this show. Thanks so much to Emily for coming on. Thanks so much to fame.so for producing this. And of course, thanks to you for listening.